you know, he walks around at that weight, says you should be at that weight and fight at that weight, but it was tough before when he's beating everybody at 155 pounds. But listen, he's a great fighter. You know, if the guy wants to stay at 55, I can't tell him. I'm just trying to persuade him. My personal opinion and the way that I really think about fighting is you only have so many fights in you as it is, as a professional athlete. Well, you only have so many wars in you too. And every fight Frankie Edgar fights at 155 is a war. And, you know, I can think of 3 of them off the top of my head where they've been controversial, where they're like, oh, he didn't win that fight. It's a controversial decision. I think he'd have less controversial decisions at 145.
Think you wouldn't have a war with Jose Aldo?
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously, but that's one of the pound for pound absolute best in the world. Jose Aldo's one of the top 3. Frankie Edgar's one of the top 3. Yeah, that would be a war, absolutely. But a war, at least at your own weight class, where you're not, you know, when you get hit by a jab, the whole left side of your face doesn't swell up and the first punch thrown in the fight. You know what I mean? I don't like guys fighting outside of their weight class. You're talking about guys who cut from 170 plus down to 55. So Frankie Edgar's walking around at that weight.
Now, if he chooses to stay at 155.
Well, and just one more thing, Benavidez just fought at 125. And he says, I feel strong at my real weight. I used to hit guys at 135 really hard, you know, and I'd wobble them or whatever, but didn't put them away. That's the difference. You're right, now he is. That's the difference. So sorry, go ahead.
But if he opts to say, hey, I want to at least do one more fight at 155 for my title, do you relent?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to persuade him the best I can, but if that's what he wants to do, it's hard to argue with a guy with his record at 155.
You said that Josh Koscheck said he would not fight John Fitch, and he later gave me his reasons why, but if a guy said, if he says I don't want to fight him, what do you do?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. I have some ideas, but we'll see.
Even if he said it won't even be a title, he won't.
No, I'm saying if he says he won't fight him, you know.
Even for a title.
We'll see.
What was the update on Brandon Sailing, by the way?
Update as far as what went down with this guy?
Yeah, I mean, so, the fallout, anything.
Yeah, so basically what happened is this guy came in and he lied on his application to the state of Ohio. He also lied in his application to the state of New Jersey. So this guy is on suspension. I mean, he'll never fight in the UFC or Strikeforce ever again, and he'll probably never fight in any state ever again. Other states hold suspensions up, and what this guy did and what he possibly represents, you know.
Thanks for replying to the tweet. I didn't actually expect you to reply to me. I sent off that angry little tweet.
I try to reply to everybody. You know, I have 2 million followers. I do the best I can.
Like I said, I figured I'd be one angry voice in the crowd. I was like, oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I'm used to it.
There were a couple of questions during the press conference this morning, kind of hinting at the fact that whether it was too short or too long or whatever. But I think the point there was that there hasn't been a moment out of the fights that have been on Fox that was like a Bonner Griffin moment where people are calling, texting their friends and telling them, do you see this fight card as having the kind of fight that can produce that kind of reaction?
I've had 2 that I thought would. You know, you never know. I mean, the 2 that I've already put on, and what's funny is, I love this, what's funny is, before that last card went off, everybody was raving about that card. This card's going to be this, that, and everything else. Then they all go to decisions like, oh, this card sucked. They put, you know, it's just like, you can't win. It's a live sporting event with real fights, with real tough guys. I mean, we put, you know, the best against the best, and you never know what you're going to get.
I asked Pat about this in the press conference, but does the things that he does outside of the octagon in terms of his presence on Twitter and the videos and all that, does that make him more of an attraction for you and put him in these fights?
No. What he does in there. You know, it's like, we've had some cases lately and throughout, you know, the history of the UFC where you get these guys who do all this goofy stuff, whether it's their walk-in or they're dyeing their body hair or whatever the hell stupid shit they come up with. I'd rather have people talk about you because of what you did in the octagon, not what you did on your way there or on your way out. Or I'm not into that stuff.
But at the same time, you got $5 grand for singing with Crow Cop. in the Twitter bonus.
Yeah, well, we have bonuses for social media and how you interact with the fans and stuff like that, but it has no. Let me tell you what, this company's got so big, and this is a huge company now. Like I said to you guys at the press conference today, we had our big executive retreat yesterday, and our executive retreat went from 3 guys sitting around talking to, I walk into the room now and there's people I don't know. Serious. I walked into the room yesterday, there were people I didn't know there. And, some of the directions that we go in aren't necessarily what I really give a shit about. The only thing I give a shit about is fights. Fights, how good they are, our television production, how everything comes off on TV, how everything comes off on pay-per-view, and how the fans feel about it. That's all I give a shit about. I don't care about anything else, but there's a lot of other things we do.
On that note,
going back to the sailing thing, I know you're not the guy who's signing these guys out of security, but do you guys do like any sort of background check?
Commission. I mean, these guys fill out a form with the athletic commissions where they have to answer a lot of questions, that are very personal. And if a guy lies on it, the athletic commissions aren't doing it and investigating on them. But when something pops up like this, that's why they have the all the commissions are connected and support each other's suspensions. So that when something like this does happen, that guy will. Listen, I'm not a commissioner. I'm the furthest thing from a commissioner. But I'd find it hard to believe that this guy will ever fight again, ever be licensed.
have you heard about what the ABC said about Michigan, speaking of commissions and
No.
problems? They want to blacklist basically any fighter out of Michigan and not certify some of the results because of all the problems that Michigan's had. Is you aware?
Michigan's had as far as what?
Mostly boxing, but also small promoters who are unlicensed, getting fights. Basically, there's no real good oversight. It's like the antithesis of New Jersey or Nevada.
Yeah. No, I like it. I mean, I just heard a story about a Muay Thai fight that just happened here in New York recently, where a guy was fighting here in New York in a Muay Thai fight who was on medical suspension for a subdural hematoma.
Jeez. That's
And the safe place to come and fight where you can get fights is New York because the regulation here is non-existent.
Do you feel, you guys have been pro-social media as far as your fighters and yourself, but with what happened with Caraway over the weekend and Miguel Torres and Forrest, do you have to reiterate to these guys maybe not to tweet every thought that comes into their head?
My policy is use common sense. Use common sense when you tweet. Bad things are going to happen. This whole social media thing, it's new. It's still evolving. And people are going to say stupid stuff. It's not just in the UFC. It happens in every sport. And, a lot of these other sports regulate it a lot more than I do. You can't tweet during this. You can't tweet during that. It's the future, man. It's where all the younger generation is living. It's only getting bigger. It's not going anywhere. And people are going to make mistakes.
when will you see the first in-cage tweet?
It's going to happen. That would be crazy. We always joke about it. Lorenzo
to get a Twitter bonus?
Lorenzo said something one time like, the NBA doesn't let you tweet, an hour before, an hour after games. We don't care if you tweet in between rounds, and it would be interesting.
Dana, with Diaz and Miller likely to get the title shot, where does Pettis stand at this point?
Yeah, he's in the mix. He's that division is so stacked, and this thing going on with Frankie and Ben right now, and I don't think I've said this yet. Do I think that Frankie should get a rematch? I do. Like he said, I've given every other guy a rematch, but my answer to that is, you've had to give every other guy a rematch because the fights were all so close, because you're fighting a weight division above where you should be.
Well, so is
Do you
this.
think this fight was close?
And while I respect that, do I think what?
His fight with Henderson was close.
You scored it
Yeah,
for him, right?
that's what I said.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
yeah.
I said it was close. They've all been close. When you fight a weight, when you're as tough as he is, and I mean, the guy takes punishment that nobody else could take. I mean, he's got to have the best chin ever and be the toughest guy other than like Big Country that I've ever seen, in the UFC. But that's not what I want. I like this kid. I respect him. I care about him. Don't want to see him keep taking that punishment. This isn't some political move for me to try to take the guy to 145. I mean, I care about the guy. I don't like to see it.
Okay, but with Frankie still in the mix right now, and
I don't know.
Diaz Miller in the mix.
I don't know. I don't know. I got to figure out the Frankie piece before I can even figure out the other piece.
Edgar Pettis, winner is next.
There you go. He just answered all the questions. I got to figure out this Frankie piece before I can do anything else with all these other guys.
You just mentioned Roy.
If Edgar does go down to 145, you go right to the Aldo fight?
Yeah, he'd fight right. He'd fight for a title immediately.
Right. So
I mean, if we say that he deserves the rematch at 55, he definitely deserves the title shot at 45.
Understood.
Do you think he'd have the same success he's had at 145, or even better?
It'd be interesting because the argument that people make is he loses his one attribute that makes him so great at 155, which is speed, which wasn't true when you saw the guys that went to 125. I mean, you want to see speed. Those fights were 100 miles an hour. And Benavidez actually even said, I just said this a second ago, I couldn't knock the guys out at 35. But now down here at my real weight, I'm strong as hell, and I feel like I'm going to have a lot more knockouts.
Give more leniency to the idea of half point scoring systems, going from 10-9, 10-8 to 8.5.
Well, that fight should have been a draw. So as far as, we get into half points, they better learn how to count fucking whole points before we get into half points. You put a fucking half a point in there, holy shit, every fucking card will be destroyed. You know what I mean? It's a bigger problem than half points. And I don't want to smash these guys. They accepted what they did, and they were stand up about it. But Jesus Christ, there's 3 fucking numbers. There's the 10s and 9s. If you can't count 10s and 9s, let's not throw fucking fractions in there.
But then they made like 2 mistakes. Because first they had a split decision for Johnson. Then they had a split draw or something like that. They had him a majority decision for him, and then they had a majority draw.
How do you know that?
They showed the card.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Because what I heard is my guy came over to me and said, one judge has it a draw right now. We're still tallying the things that so this could possibly go to another round. Because I have to know these things for the television. Because everybody's always talking shit to me. He's just sitting in the best seats in the house and he keeps looking at the television screen. I don't give a fuck what's going on in here. I know what's going on up here. I need to know what's going on in television. That's what I'm always monitoring. What's being said, what's going up, graphics, this, that. And we were already 25 minutes fat on television. So if this thing was going another round, we were going to be almost 30 minutes fat on television. So that's what I'm thinking about, And they came back and said, no, okay, it's a decision. There's a decision here, so it's not going. As soon as the show ended, they came over and told me, that should have gone an extra round. What sucks is, obviously, all the obvious for the fighters and the way that should have been, that the thing should have been one more round instead of doing the fight all over again. But what we lost was, it was an awesome night of fights anyway. How epic would it have been, especially the way that round ended, to say that this is going to another round. Not only there live, but on television, and it's just so brutal, man. It's so brutal.
You mentioned that Johnson is going to need some time after the fight. Did he have a specific injury or something?
He was busted up after that 3rd round. He was busted up, and he was the one that said at the press conference, I got to heal up from this fight. I got to figure out mentally when I'm going to get back into camp. But that's the way they all talk after they just get out of a war like that. Not to mention the fact, the hardest thing you can ever do, and thank God, in all the fights that we've done, you know what I mean? I've done over 1,600 fights in my career, right? And it's only happened to me twice. But it's the worst thing ever when you go back and you tell a guy, I need to talk to you. You didn't win this fight. The guy's already made those fucking phone calls. He's got all the plan. You think you won the fight, and then you got to find out that your fight was a draw. Or worse, what would have been worse is if I would have had to go back and tell him you lost the fight. You didn't win. That's why tallying those scores and doing what they do is so important. They have not only for all the selfish things for me, for the product and the sport and the brand and all that stuff. But these fighters, man, you literally have their lives in your hands. Get a fucking calculator. Get a, you know what I mean? Do something. Take more time. Make sure that stuff is right.
You mentioned Edgar and all the punishment he's taken. Scott Smith just fought on the Strikeforce card a couple nights ago. He gets compared a lot sometimes to him for all the punishment he's taken, and Scott's obviously at the tail end of his career. Is that what you don't want to see?
Yeah, that's what
Edgar?
I don't like. When I see guys, any guy, Edgar, Smith, Liddell, I mean, the list goes on and on. I think it's one of the good things about the sport. Other people disagree and, hate me for it, but I actually can make those decisions. Where in boxing, you get cut by your promoter, but you can go fight in 50 other promotions and, continue to take the damage that so many guys have done when they should have hung it up. I do get to make that decision. Like I said, Chuck Liddell could have stayed in the UFC and we could have continued to, I don't want to make $1 of that kind of money. I want to see guys in their prime, guys that are healthy, guys that aren't going to take a ton of damage other than what you take in a contact sport, while you're still healthy enough and have all your reaction time to compete safely.
Speaking of the end of careers, did you hear about Rampage?
What, the stuff he's been tweeting?
Yeah, this morning.
I talked to Rampage for an hour and a half yesterday. And I think Rampage takes his losses hard.
Yeah, he said he does. Yeah.
And I think that's what he's going through. He's not a big fan of criticism either. No, I mean that in a serious way. He's not. He can't handle criticism. He was pissed off at me because I said I don't think he's taken his career as serious as he has in the past since the Evans fight. And he was fucking pissed about that. And he's like, what you said about me. I said, I didn't say you were a fucking scumbag or, And then, he's like, I'd rather you say that than what you did say, So, he takes criticism hard. He takes his losses hard. And, he's going through what Rampage goes through after a loss.
So you think he's for real, or you just think he's Rampage being Rampage?
You never know.
Never know.
You never know.
Conversation in a better frame of mind?
Yeah, no, he and I had an awesome conversation yesterday. After we get through all the, and I'll be honest with you, he was pissed off and said, you don't say that shit to my face, like it was something that needed to be said to his face, like I need to go up to him and say, hey, just so you fucking know, it's like it was one of those conversations. It wasn't one of those. It wasn't the way that it was done. So when I knew that he was pissed about it, I called him, and the conversation started out real bad, and then it got better and better and better. And I think that by the time we got off the phone, I thought that we were in a good place. Thought that we had worked it out. But by his tweets today, you just don't know with him.
I want to ask you about Nate Marquardt and his eventual debut in Strikeforce. How soon will that be, and how soon do you see him getting a title shot?
I don't know. I've been in every fucking country on this planet over the last 3 weeks, and the thing is too, it's like the Rampage call yesterday. Got to talk to Frankie today. Talked to Rhonda this morning. I talked to Misha yesterday. I owe a lot of people phone calls right now, and that's what I've been doing in between all the city hopping that I'm going to be doing over the next 4 days. But I'm getting caught up on all that stuff. But as far as when he's going to get a title shot, I don't know. Let's see how he looks when he goes in Strikeforce. I don't know when that next fight is going to be. But that's all I can really say right now.
You talked about Ronda's success earlier at the presser.
Yep.
What do you think of the future of women's MMA as far as, do you think like from a promoter's angle, from Strikeforce? I mean, I know you said you don't really do a lot of decisions there, but what about a fighter like Sarah McMahon, who's not currently with Strikeforce, but Olympian versus Olympian? Do you think that might actually take it even a step further?
I do a lot of decisions there, just not with the production. And then as far as women's MMA, I feel the same way now as I did about it 3 weeks ago. I mean, basically, what just happened is what I've been saying all along. I think that there's not enough great women to create an entire division, but I think there's going to be these one-off fights that will be great. And I honestly believe, and this isn't promoter talk or bullshit, you guys tell me if I'm right or wrong, if you agree or disagree. I think that was the biggest fight ever in women's MMA the other day. And I think they both, not only, you know, and not to sound like a chauvinist, sexist, you know, they're both beautiful girls. They're both beautiful girls that are incredibly talented. And they went out there and they put on a fight that that you could actually be proud of as a mixed martial arts fan. You could say these are two talented women that went out there and competed against one another. And I think Ronda Rousey is unbelievable, and I think she's going to be a huge star. But unfortunately, you know, I think she's going to end up being a, the hell was her name?
Chrono.
No.
Cyborg?
No. Boxing. I think she's going to end up...
Oh, Klitschko?
Huh?
Klitschko?
Klitschko.
I mean, nobody.
What, did she put people to fucking sleep the other night? Did you fucking tune in to watch a fight and wake up the next fucking morning and eat breakfast? No, she's not a Klitschko. I'm talking about the girl, the female boxer.
Oh, Ali.
Christy Martin?
No, see, you guys don't even know who she is. There was a female boxer in the days of Christy Martin, Layla Ali, that nobody would fight. Lucia Riker.
Oh, Riker,
Lucia
right.
Riker. I think she's going to end up being the Lucia Riker of our sport. That she's so nasty that I just don't think that there's either enough competition out there for her to really test her and have her showcase in some great fights. I mean, if you look at a guy like Anderson Silva, you know, has gone up against everything that the 185-pound had to offer, and some guys at 205. And he's been able, you know, he's had his low moments, but he's been able to look spectacular. And you can say this guy is the pound-for-pound best in the world, and will go down in history as, if not the best, one of the best ever. You know, Ronda Rousey isn't going to have that type of career where there's going to be all this amazing talent that you can throw at her that she can beat. That's what I'm saying. There's not enough depth in the women's divisions right now.
How many years away do you think until the women's MMA is caught up?
Well, if it ever does, I don't know. But one of the great things that I do know is that everywhere, in every country all around the world, mixed martial arts is the new martial art. Whereas you would have put your kids in Taekwondo or this or that it's now mixed martial arts. So there probably is going to be some great female talent coming up, and there's definitely going to be tons of great male talent coming up. It remains to be seen.
Is there a chicken if you don't continue to promote women's MMA?
I think we promoted the shit out of that fight.
Right.
Because we knew that we had a great fight. We knew we had a great fight between two very talented women. You know, and they didn't do too bad,
right.
You know, expressing their feelings for each other either, and the lead up for that fight, which is all good stuff. And the difference is, exactly, the difference is I got 375 guys that do that every day, and I had two women. You know,
that's why I mentioned Sarah before. It's because she's an Olympic silver medalist wrestling, and you know, wrestling versus judo, so it'd be good for from promotion.
Yeah, and you know what? And me and Lorenzo were talking about this on the flight, and Lorenzo's like, you know, there will be other girls that will come up that will challenge Rousey. So we'll see what happens.
She can compete at 145 as well, though, can't she?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Cyborg chase them all away.
That's what I'm saying, but there's Cyborg, whenever she gets back, I don't know if Corrano's ever coming back.
Can you give us a tough recap? How's everything going with filming and all that stuff?
Tough?
Yeah.
I start filming Tough on tomorrow. I start filming Tough tomorrow. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I finish filming Saturday at 2 o'clock, jump straight on the plane and fly to Brazil. I'm there for 2 days to finish filming there. The season of Tough Brazil is awesome. The fights to get into the house are fucking insane. And the fights this season are very good. And I think we're going to come up with some serious talent out of Brazil, as we always do.
Do you have any hope of mending the relationship with Showtime?
Yeah, and I did an interview earlier with Ariel, and I'll clear that up for you guys. The interview, the non-interview that was done on MMA Junkie, that wasn't a fucking interview. That was a conversation that I had with him. And he went out and wrote that story like we did a story. I didn't fucking do a story with him. He came back into my room after the fight in Australia, and he asked me the questions that he had to ask me, and he had been traveling all over the place like I had, so we were just talking and shooting the shit, and how come I didn't go to the strike? It was never an interview. He went out and wrote that fucking story, and that wasn't a story, and in no way, shape, or form, listen, you guys know, you've dealt with me long enough. If I don't fucking like you and I'm mad, and I want to do an interview, and I want the world to hear what I'm saying about it, I'll fucking tell you and I'll do it. And he knows, and he admitted to me that that was not the case with that story. Now, me and the producer of Showtime might creatively have some differences. If outside of our creative differences, he's a nice guy. I don't dislike him as a person, you know? And I would never have gone out and embarrassed. And in Espinoza, I have no problems with Espinoza. Do we have some creative differences? Of course we do. You know, that's why when we go into a deal, I want production. I want production, and but that wasn't the deal with Strikeforce. Strikeforce has no control over the production, and that's the deal that I inherited. You know, I'm trying to work this thing out with these guys, and you know, the irresponsible journalism that was done in that, you know, embarrassed me, embarrassed those guys over there, and it's fucking shitty. So I'm publicly apologizing to those guys because that's not what that was done, and you've never heard me publicly apologize for fucking anything, you know. So that right there tells you I'm being honest and I'm being sincere about it. You know, I don't dislike those guys, but we have some creative differences, you know, and how men deal with their creative differences behind the scenes should be left behind the scenes. And I made the mistake of talking to somebody like another fucking human being and having a conversation.
When
So just to clear that up.
I'm sorry. When does the Strikeforce deal end that you might be able to then assume some sort of...
Well, I'm not saying that we can't work this thing out anyways, but this thing was being worked out between men behind the scenes, and I made the mistake of talking to somebody that I've known for a long time in the business and who always came off as a good guy. And I didn't think he would do that, and he did.
You said you spoke with Misha. Did she have any kind of update on the status of her arm?
Yeah, Misha was completely upbeat and, you know, told me how bad she did not want to tap out, which was pretty fucking apparent. And, you know, I like her. She's awesome, man. She's, you know, it's funny because I always talk about guys, and you know when you meet a guy and you get to know him, that guy was put on this fucking earth to fight. So was Misha Tate. It's pretty cool. So.
Dan, I'm with the Raleigh News and Observer. I just want to ask you, I was talking to fighters in North Carolina, and they were talking about the battle for the fight for the troops, excuse me. Is there any plans to do anything like that back in North Carolina or elsewhere with the military or that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. No, that's our charity, man. That's my first and foremost and number. We have a lot of charities. We give to a lot of different things, but when you talk about what our charity is, the UFC as an organization, it's the military. And, you know, we're always donating. You know, they were building this TBI center, and right when the economy collapsed, they ran out of money to finish it. We raised $7 million to finish the TBI center. And the list goes on. And yes, we are working on another fight for the troops. The one thing that I like to do when we do it is to make sure that we get as much exposure as we possibly can. And now that we're on this new network, we need to figure out how we're going to do it and how we're going to incorporate that into the fights that we do on Fox.
Would that be back at Fort Bragg, you think? Or?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I was willing to go over there when, you know, right in the middle of the war zone and put on a show. And we were going to do it. It was happening, and the place that we were going to do it at ended up getting attacked. So they indefinitely put the hold on us. But I'm willing to go anywhere and do anything for the troops. It's just a matter of logistically getting it done now with our new deal.
Do you think the UFC does a good job of like looking at different parts of the country? And
oh, absolutely we do. Yeah, we absolutely do. We look everywhere, man. Let me tell you what, brother. We need fighters, man. We're putting on a ton of shows between injuries and traveling all over the world and all these other things. We need fighters. We're always looking for the best available guys.
Yeah, I mean, like lately, I mean, like in the last year, I mean, with the number of promotions, you know, Fuel, Fox, and everything else, I mean, was it doubled? I mean, like how many fighters do you have now versus how many you had like a 1 or 2 years ago?
You know, we always stay around the same amount. because guys are cycling in and out. You got guys that are under long-term deals, but then there's guys that come and go with every show. So we stay right around the same, anywhere between 375 and 400 guys under contract at one time. But yeah, we're always looking for the top talent.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you remember Brandon Garner. He was on the Ultimate Fighter. He beat a guy, but he won with an illegal knee. Do you remember this? No. I was just wondering. Okay, I was just wondering if he stuck in your mind at all.
There goes that whole interview.
Do people re-audition for the Ultimate Fighter because he was?
Yeah, people. Oh yeah.
Miles Jury.
Yeah, people. Yeah, and plus guys who try out. I mean, I've seen some guys 5, 6, 7 times try out and then finally make it. Hey, don't ever give up, man. This isn't the NFL. Once you're fucking out, you're out forever. There's nowhere else to play. You know, you go out and you work on the things that made you leave the UFC, and you try to get back in and work your way up again.
Why didn't you guys take Ben Henderson on the Ultimate Fighter?
I have no idea. I don't remember. Frankie Edgar didn't make it. Ben Henderson didn't make it. Clay Guida didn't make it. I mean, there's so many guys that didn't. You know what I mean?
Does it make you wonder if your process, like, how did we miss these?
Yeah, apparently we fucking suck at casting.
Well, are you at that point? Are you looking for a combination of talent and like personality, or is it?
Here's how it works. We go after the best guys possible, and then they go on and they interview with the reality guys.
Oh, okay. So you both get a say in.
Oh yeah, we take the guys who are the best. You know, Frankie Edgar, Clay Guida, Ben Henderson. All these guys made it on our side, then went and interviewed with Craig Pelagian and his crew for the reality side.
You have a word with that guy.
Like we just didn't make it.
Yeah.
Dan, can you talk about bringing back the UFC to Atlantic City? It's been a little while, so can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's where we really got our start. That's where when the guy was asking me today about our first show ever was at the Trump Taj Mahal, sold 3,500 tickets, had 5,000 people there live, and did a live gate of $115,000, you know? And on top of that, to give not only New Jersey, Atlantic City, and Donald Trump their dues. New Jersey was the first state to really regulate MMA. The Trump Taj Mahal and Trump Place, all the Trump places were the only venue that would accept us and take us at the time. You know, Donald Trump. And what was my third thing? I don't know. That's it.
I think you said something about Atlantic City.
No, it was the first ever. But Atlantic City and New Jersey itself is where it all started. You know, Donald, Atlantic City, and New Jersey.
Unified rules.
You know, it's awesome. It's really where we as a sport here in the United States and we as a company got our start.
Can you talk about the event itself? It's going to be at the Revel. Can you talk about the event and what you're planning on, if there's anything leading up to it or anything like that?
Oh, same shit. I mean, everything that we do is exactly the same. But my point was, when you asked me that, you know, New Jersey and Atlantic City and Donald Trump all hold a special place in my heart. You know, even when, you know, the Affliction stuff was going on and Donald was involved in that, you never, ever heard me say a bad word about Donald Trump. You know, his son is another story, but you never heard me say anything about Donald. I have nothing but respect for that guy. Not only that, what's really cool about Donald Trump is after we did those first 2 events at his place, we went and did the third one at the Meadowlands, you know.
Is Tito on that card?
Yeah,
yep.
Tito was on that Meadowlands card. Donald Trump actually came to that fight and was one of the first guys in his seat in the arena from the first prelim and watched the entire card that night, and it wasn't even at his place. You know, talk about a guy who saw it early, gave us the respect, I couldn't say enough good things about the guy.
What's your relationship with him now?
I haven't talked to him in a long time, but you know what he did do? When we did our first, we did the Fox deal and did our first Fox fight, he sent me a clipping of the paper here in New York when it was in there, and said, "So happy for you guys. You guys have come a long way. Congratulations, Donald Trump." So Trump is a stud, man. I mean, he's always been a stand-up guy with me, and like I said, I really dig Donald. I think he really does. He saw this thing before anybody else did. A lot of people want to jump in after, and everybody tried to throw money at it, and everybody claims but this guy saw it before anybody did.
You guys never did announce the gate for 144 in Japan. Well, you said there was an issue at the press conference.
Yeah, there was.
Did you ever get that straightened out?
I never did get that straightened out. And I'll tell you what that was. and it's tough. It's tough to make this call where, and I didn't want to do it publicly because there was some discrepancies on what was going on and everything else. Yeah, so don't tell anybody, okay, you guys? This is off the record. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We believe we have the biggest gate in Japanese MMA history. A lot of smoke and mirrors going on out there back in the old days.
Okay.
The biggest gate that Pride had ever done was $3 million. It was their biggest gate ever.
Including the Tokyo Dome?
Ever.
Okay.
Their biggest gate ever was $3 million. The big question is, which they're not MMA, their kickboxing was K1. But we think we even beat K1. So that was the thing. And I didn't want to go public with any numbers until I had all the facts in place. And I still don't have all the facts in place because after I left, I was on to Australia and all the other fucking nightmare that I've been living for the last 2 weeks.
Speaking of nightmares, Rampage last week did an interview and he talked about TRT use.
Yep, let me. I can get into that one with you too. That interview, I was in Australia, and I did the press conference after I was doing a scrum like this. And there was a guy there, and he started hitting me with all this stuff about Rampage. Rampage on testosterone replacement therapy and this, that, and everything else. And it was the first I'd heard of it. It's the first I'd heard of any of that stuff. So he starts hitting me with all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that's true. I don't think that's true. And then the guy started saying to me, well, you just said, I said, I didn't fucking say that. No, I did not fucking say that. I know what you're doing here. And I don't like it. Don't fuck with me like this. I don't play these games. You know what I mean? I see what you're doing, da-da-da. And I got into it with this guy. So in Rampage's defense, you know, Rampage is out there tweeting some crazy shit. I talked to Rampage yesterday. You know, and Rampage is Rampage. And in his defense, this guy was a fucking weasel. This reporter that was talking to me. He was trying to do some shit and put some words in my mouth that he said I just said that I didn't say. I said I did not fucking say that, and I see what you're doing here. You know, don't fucking play this shit with me, bro. I don't, you know. And it got ugly there for a minute with this guy. So I'm not saying that his interview with Rampage didn't happen and what was said or whatever. I don't know, but I can tell you my experience with this guy was not a good one. This guy was a weasel. So. Just for the record.
So you don't know if he is or isn't on the testosterone?
No, yes he was.
Oh, he was.
Yes, okay. The answer is yes he was. But all the stuff that went on in that interview, first of all, 90% of it is false. And if you guys want to know and want to get into all that shit, you should talk to Lorenzo. Because what happened was, right after I talked to that weasel, I went over and picked up the phone and called Lorenzo. I said, this is what just fucking happened. I'm out here handling this shit. Figure this out and get to the bottom of this and find out what's going on. And he did it. Took him all day. He went through it. But Lorenzo has more details on that than I do. So you guys can talk to Lorenzo.
Is there any kind of update about Nick Diaz's hearing?
I know nothing about that. I haven't been in the loop at all on that thing. From what I heard, they put him on like a partial suspension or something. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, you guys know more about that than I do.
When you mentioned,
here's the thing: he smoked weed, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen through the commission. That's what I know. I mean, I'm not. I can't fucking worry about that. It's, you know, whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Past couple of weeks, you've had a few interviews that have kind of, I'm not putting in words, but that they're questionable. Guys putting things in their mouth or things off the rack.
Yeah.
How will that affect how you deal with?
That's a good question. You know, yesterday, I didn't want to talk to any of you guys yesterday. I was so pissed after I talked to him. But you know, part of my problem is, and I got a lot of fucking problems. Part of my problem is that I am so open, and I'm an open book, and I don't have problems talking to you guys. It's just that the only thing I ask is, you know, I'm always honest, I'm always upfront, but there's going to be some things that are off the, obviously nothing here is off the record. I mean, I'm sitting here in a scrum, but I get into these times where you know, I have relationships with most of you guys, and, you know, there's going to be times when I say a little bit more than I probably should publicly, and you don't ever want to be in a position where you're, like, the perfect example is the Showtime thing. You know, I get fucking going and I get going. And there's times when I'm talking and things should be public and things shouldn't be. And it's not because we're trying to hide things from people, but there's certain things that you don't fucking say in public. You know, that I could say to you guys in a one-on-one conversation, here's why I'm not in Columbus. You know, and you know that I'm like that. And I do that sometimes. But, you know, these aren't people that I dislike, and obviously people that I don't want to embarrass in front of the whole world, you know? And what happened there, I think that not only did I embarrass them, I embarrassed myself. And that it was never supposed to be an interview. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? That's my point. I mean, you guys know, you guys are professionals, and I know you guys are in a battle every day to one-up the next guy that's writing the story. I get it. We're all competitive in what we do and stuff, but we got to do it with some dignity, and it's got to be done right. I mean, you guys should understand, I don't think there's anybody in all of fucking sports that gives you what I give you, the access and the, you know, the stupid shit that I say all the time and everything else, but there are limits. And I don't ever want to be in a situation where I'm just talking to you guys because I don't want to feel like I can't be friends with you guys. Like I can't tell you guys, because I've done it with everybody. I've done it with guys where I've said, hey, listen, this is you and I talking. And I think that the MMA media gets more information and more inside information than any other sport in the world does. And I don't want it to not be that way anymore. You know, I don't ever want that to stop. I don't think that relationship ever has to stop, but you can't fuck me like that. You can't do it. It's just, when he was sitting there typing that story, there's no way in hell that it didn't come across his mind that this isn't a fucking quote from Dana. This is a conversation that we had on a story. I went and talked to him about a completely different story. That was never the story.
What's your relationship with him now?
I'm pissed at him.
Have you talked to him?
I think, fuck yeah, I talked to him yesterday, and it was not a good conversation. It was not a good conversation, and he's a guy whom I think is a good person, you know, and I don't dislike him, and I don't want to think that, you know, I think the moment caught up with him, you know. Maybe he was fucking jet lagged from all the traveling he was doing, but what he did was wrong. Very wrong, and he admitted it. It's not like he denied it and said, you know, I disagree. I think that he admitted it, and I respect him for that, you know, but it should have never been done in the first place, you know, and it hurt some people publicly that didn't deserve to be hurt. Like I said, just because you don't agree with me, you know, doesn't mean you're a bad guy or whatever. Lots of fucking people don't agree with me, and lots of people are going to continue to disagree with me, and this is what we're all disagreeing over there is creative stuff. We're creatively disagreeing, which doesn't make them bad guys. You know, I'm very passionate about how I feel things should be done, and, you know, I'll use passionate about how I think things should be done, and we're not going to see eye to eye. It doesn't make you a bad person, and it doesn't, you know, there were things that were said in front of the whole world that shouldn't have been said in front of the whole world.
Dana, you talk about your travel and obviously Japan, Brazil, and back to Brazil and stuff. From a business perspective, I mean, you know, if you're looking at, you know, trying to keep the growth of the UFC going, which has been, you know, more or less exponential, do you see, is there any slowdown in the U.S.? Do you look internationally abroad to keep that growth really going at the rate that it's been going? Is that kind of the way you look at it? Or?
Yeah. Are we going to keep it going at the rate it's been going?
Well, I mean, because the U.S. market can get sort of glut. I mean, there's so many choices here and that kind of thing,
right,
you know, for U.S. companies. Do you look at the international market as being like where the next boom is going to be?
No, I think the boom is still booming everywhere. We're still booming here in the United States. I mean, we're only on our second. We're weeks into the Fox deal.
Yeah.
Wait till we're 2 years into this Fox deal. We have so much work to do, and like yesterday, the hard part is when you're running as hard as we're running, you know, and as hard as I'm running, to regroup and work on what's going to happen. Like yesterday when we got into this corporate retreat, you know, the shit that we came up with and the stuff that needs to be done, but getting in that room and banging that stuff out is very important.
Yeah.
Very important. I don't know if I answered your question. I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying right now. There's still a lot of work to be done. The next 2 years are going to be very important here in the United States and all over the rest of the world. And yes, we plan on going to states that we've never been to, like New York, and places that we haven't been back to in a few years, and getting these big Fox fights on and introducing millions of people here in the United States to the sport that have never seen it, and millions of people around the world. I mean, when you really sit down and think about how big this sport is and what can be done, it's hard to wrap your brain around.
Yeah, with all the stuff you have to think about, is New York, I mean, do you consider priority the legalization here?
Huge priority, yeah. The Garden. When we do this fight at the Garden, you know how big this thing's going to be? It's going to be like Toronto when we did Toronto. It's going to be like, all these other countries that we've done for the first time. I mean, think about this. We've been to Australia 3 times, and all 3 times we went to Sydney. And I don't know if you guys picked this up from the last fight. We just went back there again with a fight night and shattered the fight night record. Shattered the record for fight night gate. We did a $2.5 million gate for a fight night. The biggest one ever. Before that was $1 million.
Is it the size of the venue, or is it just necessarily the symbolic representation?
It's more people that are becoming fans of the sport. That every market that we go to continues to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And when we first started reaching out into these new territories, we were breaking records and everything. We're going back and shattering different records, and it's just going to continue, guys. The stuff that we're working on and the stuff that we have in the works is just very, very cool. And we're going to continue to revolutionize not only the sport of mixed martial arts, but combat sports in general. We're doing some cool shit.
Crowd down there. What was the worst crowd you've
ever
been around?
Yeah, there's been
some area you're going to call
there's been some bad ones. I can't single out any one place, but here's what happens. Here's what happens and what's starting to happen in other places. It's like these guys, when you go to a boxing match, right? And there's the big title fight, right? And these guys go out, they're moving around, they start to engage, and then they pull off and dance around. And maybe in that round they threw fucking 10 punches each. And when they go back to the corner, the way that the commentators explain it, all right, that was the first round, they're getting into the rhythm, they're feeling each other out. Yeah, that's what fighters do. You get in there and if these guys don't run like fucking freight trains right into each other and start killing each other, the crowd starts fucking booing. Are you out of your minds? This is a fight where everything's on the line and means something. These guys aren't just going to run directly into each other.
So you don't miss the Just Bleed crowd?
Yeah, no, it's like, or you'll see a fight that's very technical and going very well, and people start boo and start doing all this shit. We're falling into this thing where people are becoming so spoiled because you'll see a card, and I call them holy shit moments, where you jump out of your chair and you go, holy shit, right? There's so many of them in the UFC and so many things. It's like they expect every fight to be like that. It's physically impossible for every fight to be like that. So relax, everybody.
The last tough.
Right.
All your holy shit.
Right.
See more of you in the UFC having holy shit moments. That makes for good camera.
Oh, I love holy shit moments.
Better if you ever watch Joe
yeah, exactly. Holy shit moments are awesome for me. I mean, it means the show is going great, and I've done over almost 2,000 fights. So if I'm fucking loving it, I mean, you got to be loving it if it's like your third UFC,
Has the East Coast caught up to the West Coast as far as knowledge in MMA and all?
I don't think so. I think we're getting there, but this is another great thing about this Fox deal is when we were on Spike TV, Spike's really strong in like what they call the Bible Belt, down that southern part. Yeah, they don't, there aren't huge Spike fans. People aren't clamoring to Spike up here in New York and Boston and all these other cities, the major cities. Now being on Fox, because of the NFL, you've got all these major sports cities from Boston, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, and the list goes on and on of all these major sports cities that we're reaching now, and all new fans that we've never reached before.
Was that a big part of getting on Fox in particular for you, the fact that you would be on the same network?
I just think Fox is a perfect fit for us, period.
Losing money technically with that.
With their style of programming and everything else, I always said getting on network television is never going to make you rich. People read that deal, $700 million deal for 7 years. You realize we produce, pay for all the programming that goes on the network and all the talent. When I say talent, I mean fighters, commentators. We pay for everything out of that money. You know what I mean? Now, when you hear that the NFL signed a $9 billion deal for television rights, fucking $9 billion goes into their pocket. The network does all the production, hires all the people, this, that, everything. That $9 billion goes into their pocket. Our $700 million, we fucking pay for everything. But that's the way that I wanted it. I can't sit here and cry and go, oh, they get
Was that
that.
necessary to have the control that you wanted?
That's the control that I wanted. I wanted that control.
Was that money a game changer for the network money? I mean, obviously, as you say, it's not as big as maybe it seems, but did that, as far as making plans for the future and having that regular money coming in for 7 years, did that?
Yeah, it's not about the money coming in. It's about the exposure on television. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it was the money coming in would be like, yeah, that's $700 million is profit. It's not even fucking close. You know what I mean? That money goes to paying for what we owe Fox now as far as programming goes.
Promo that aired, they're fantastic.
That's us. We've always done everything in house.
It seemed like to be a big change a couple years ago, starting with the first Edgar Maynard fight, the Find Your Rhythm. That you guys had. That was just so different from everything you guys had previously done.
Well,
it seems like it was like a 180, like you hired somebody new.
Well, no, it's because we started. What we started to do is do all this. We changed it up. We started doing different kinds of promotions. From the traditional UFC stuff that we did to now.
like the GSP Shields promos were kind of Rocky 3 beginning of.
Well, you think you like the stuff that we're coming out with now? Like I said in this meeting yesterday, wait and see what we're doing next. We're taking everything to a whole nother level, and we've got some ideas on what we think we need to do to start reaching the people that don't know anything about us. You know what I mean? Reaching Joe Schmo who's sitting on. The problem with us is we fall into this rut where we're speaking to the same people all the time. We're always talking to the same people. We're now trying to, and if you like that John Jones piece, wait till you see the 4-minute piece. That's a 4-minute piece that we shot at the event when he fought Machida. The 4-minute piece will fucking blow you away.
Props to that camera guy. He did some good shots.
I liked it so much that I personally did not want to run that 60-second spot because I didn't think it told you what it should have. When we're going to put the 4-minute piece out virally, wait till you guys see this. You won't believe it. It's unfucking believable.
Good.
You done with me?
Well, let the fans finally get it.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it. All right, thanks guys. All right.